Good morning, folks. How are we doing today? I hope you've had a good weekend so far. I hope you have a good Sunday. So, school's officially started for me. I had my first couple days. I'm going to try to be coming out with 2 episodes every week now after every school day that I have. And it's already crazy, so let's jump in here. So, I made a few points, and what I plan on doing for the this semester and every time I'm in school is just jotting down points of whether it's between a debate or from a lecture, um, or from just things that that my teacher says or my professors say. I'm just gonna jot down points and I'm gonna disprove them here. And there's a lot of fallacious claims already made in the first week. So let's get started. So the first one is Locke and Jefferson and etc. are part of the Enlightenment. This is true and not true. This is true because John Locke and Thomas Jefferson and others that were instrumental to the foundation and the founding values and principles of America, they were born within the time span of the Enlightenment, which started anywhere from 1650 and or 1700, ending in the beginning of the 1800s. There's still debate between where it really began, but basically they were born within that time period, sure. But the thing with the Enlightenment, it was supposed to be this awakening of reasoning, of human reason, but without God, but without the dependence on God. It was supposed to be like the human mind being freed from the shackles of religion, so to speak. So some of the famous Enlightenment thinkers are Francis Bacon, Rene Descartes. I hope I'm saying that right. Obviously John Locke, Adam Smith, Immanuel Kant, very famous one. So let's get started with it. I have no idea. I just actually moved that tab over. So let's get started with it. So to think that Thomas Jefferson was at all an atheist or a deist or anything like that is false. His view on religion really evolved over time. So of course you could pick different quotes from different times of his life and it'll contradict himself, but as he got older he definitely got more religious of a man, and his view on reason certainly was instrumental with his religion. He's saying here, quote, this is a letter, this is a reply to Virginia Baptists in 1808. It says, quote, we have solved by fair experiment the great and interesting question whether freedom of religion is compatible with order in government and obedience to the laws. And we have experienced the quiet as well as the comfort which results from leaving everyone to profess freely and openly those principles of religion which are the inductions of his own reason and the serious convictions of his own inquiries. So he's saying right here, the inductions of his reason. He's saying for when people start to believe in their faith, when people start to, he's saying right here that when people get closer to their faith and to their religion, that now introduces them to reason. That now helps that individual form their reason, the way their mind reasons things, and it awakens their reason, so to speak, is what he's trying to say here, and that's really interesting, and that's something to note. And of course, Thomas Jefferson. I'll get on with his actual religious beliefs and what he thought of when he came to the Bible in a second, along with some other founding fathers. But just to go to John Locke as well, John Locke said right here in a letter on toleration, meaning religious toleration. He says here, quote, man's first care should be of his soul, and then also nothing belonging to this mortal condition is in any way comparable with eternity. Most historians, including and scholars, including Maurice Cranston, who wrote a piece on Locke, I believe, says this, quote, political theory Locke's political theory, was based on his religious convictions. And according to this view, Locke designed the principles of religious freedom primarily to ensure the sincerity of belief which God required of man for salvation. So Locke was a faithful man as well. So let's continue. That was my first point. Locke and Jefferson and etc. part of the Enlightenment. Yes, as in they were born within the time period of the Enlightenment, and they were great thinkers, and they were great advocates for reason, but they were advocates for reason going hand in hand with religion, going hand in hand with Christianity and Judeo-Christian morals and values and ethics. The second one, similar to the first one, it says, thought of human reason alone to help progress science, technology, and society without superstition. I just went over that. The first 2 points are very similar. But like I said, I just went over that one. Let's run through it. There's been a fallacy too, where basically a lot of the founding fathers, especially Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams, have been thought to be theists or just atheists in general, and they weren't. Like I said, both of their religions evolved over time. And let me give you all a couple of examples of that right now. So this is from John Adams to Benjamin Rush, who was another founding father. He says this. He says, the Christian religion, as I understand it, is the brightness of the glory in the express portrait of the character of the eternal, self-existent, independent, benevolent, all-powerful, and all-merciful creator, preserver, and father of the universe. The first good, first perfect, and first fair. He goes on to later say, ask me not then whether I'm a Catholic or Protestant, Calvinist or Armenian. As far as they are Christians, I wish to be a fellow disciple with them all. So that's Adam Smith. Clearly 100% not an atheist, and not the words of an atheist. Let me quote you a comment. This is from Dennis Prager's Still Last But Hope. Great book. I'm not trying to give him some sort of free plug. It just has a lot of great material on it. And John Adams right here. This is a common misconception. Let me read it out of this for a moment. The liberal magazine The Nation and the website www.deism.org both honed in on a comment from Adams. Quote, 20 times in the course of my late reading have I been upon the point of breaking out. This would be the best of all possible worlds if there were no religion in it. Now we hear that a lot from atheists and progressives saying, look, John Adams wasn't a Christian, he was an atheist or even an agnostic. Well, that's false if you want to read the following two lines, like the exact following two lines, which also say, quote, without religion, this world would be something not fit to be mentioned in polite society. I mean hell. So what he's saying is, look, this world's pretty bad with religion already, but without religion, this world would be hell. And he says right before that the thought of this world being better without religion escapes him quickly, because he realizes how much worse the world would be without religion, specifically Judeo-Christianity, because that's Judeo-Christian ethics and Christianity and Judaism. So let's move on. Benjamin Franklin actually called for prayers before the Constitutional Convention because it was so stressful and it was so hard to just create agreements and for all these different people to come together, you know, people that didn't want slavery, people that did want slavery, and whatnot. And of course, a host of whole other factors. So Thomas Jefferson said this, Benjamin Franklin said this, quote, I have lived, sir, a long time, and the longer I live, the more convincing proofs I see of this truth, that God governs in the affairs of men. And if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, is it probable that an empire can rise without his aid? Let's go to another one. Let's go back to Thomas Jefferson now. This is off of the Thomas Jefferson Foundation. This is from a letter. This is a letter from him to Benjamin Rush, the letter that John Adams was writing before. Jefferson says, quote, to the corruptions of Christianity I am indeed opposed, but not to the genuine precepts of Jesus himself. I am a Christian in the only sense in which he wished anyone to be, sincerely attached to his doctrines and preference to all others, ascribing to himself every human excellence, and believing he never claimed any other. Now, Thomas Jefferson had his doubts about certain parts of the Bible and certain metaphysical parts of the Bible. Like in Joshua, he has a problem with the astronomical improbability of the sun standing still. But he also, when he writes a letter to his cousin about this, who was studying in Paris, I believe, at the time, he's basically telling his cousin, put all your prejudices aside, put all doubts about things one way or the other way aside, and just simply look at the facts. And look at the laws of nature, and look at all the facts surrounding the Bible, and all the facts surrounding there not being a God. And make your decision based off of that. And Thomas Jefferson was huge speaking upon reason. He spoke on reason a lot, as I mentioned earlier. So clearly, Thomas Jefferson's reason was entrenched in the Judeo-Christianity, and specifically into the teaching of Jesus and the teachings of the New Testament itself, and the Bible. He read the Bible so much to the point where he and loved the works of the Bible so much and the wisdom of the Bible so much, where he created his own little Bible, which I don't necessarily agree with, but that's what he did, so he could take out some of the parts that he thought were less believable. But he realized that they were more of, and he writes this letter, that they're more of inspiration, and so therefore he didn't want to basically mix that up with actual true wisdom and actual true words of Jesus or other people. So Margaret Baird Smith, in her memoir, The First 40 Years of Washington Society, said this about Jefferson. Basically saying, during the first winter, Mr. Jefferson regularly attended service on the Sabbath day in the humble church. The congregation seldom exceeded 50 or 60, yada yada. She goes on later to say this. She said, Henry S. Randall, who interviewed Jefferson's family member, this is off the Thomas Jefferson Foundation still, in his 3-volume Life of Thomas Jefferson, claimed that Jefferson, quote, attended church with as much regularity as most of the members of the congregation, sometimes going alone on horseback when his family remained home. So Thomas Jefferson was a deeply faithful man, and yeah, he had his questions, as we all do, and he had his doubts, as we all do sometimes as well. But he certainly was entrenched within the Judeo-Christian teachings and faith. So George Washington says, and George Washington was a deeply faithful man. Of course, everyone's faith evolves over time. George Washington as well was a very faithful man, probably one of the most ardent faithful men of the founding fathers. He says here, quote, and let us with caution indulge the supposition that morality can be maintained without religion. Whatever may be conceded to the influence of refined education on minds of peculiar structure, reason and experience both forbid us to expect that natural morality can prevail in exclusion of religious principle. This is perfect for the point I'm trying to make. George Washington is saying right here that you can't have that rationality is hard without religious precepts, and with him specifically, he's speaking on Judeo-Christian values and Judeo-Christian principles. He's basically saying that it's the morality of a nation, which the reason why they created the United States to be based off of Judeo-Christian ethics and values is because they realized that the only counter to liberty was a moral people, and they all believed this. They didn't just sell the lie of Christianity. They all believed deeply in Christianity and believed in what it did to better themselves and to help them think better and be more reasonable. So their reason and their faith went hand in hand. Their faith opened their eyes more to reason and to human reason, and they realized that there's no point to reason in this life if you don't have ethics and values and morals which are derived from religion, as they speak here and as George Washington says. There's no point to them, because it's reasonable to tell the Nazis that you have a Jewish family hiding up in your attic. If you know that if they're caught, then you'll be killed. Morality is the thing that is telling you to say, no, I don't. That is telling you to lie to them, which would be moral in that case, because you're saving people from imminent death. Let's go to one more point, because I don't want this to go on for too long. So the founders didn't trust public opinion via Federalist Papers 51. True, except this is leaving out information. So basically the way my professor, and this is a different professor from the last couple points, the way that he positioned this was that basically the founding fathers called for a stronger central government because they didn't trust the people themselves. And that they felt that factions would arise. Now, the founding fathers were very skeptical on human nature. They speak all about this, and they speak all about the human nature spoken upon in the Federalist Papers as well. However, that's the reason why they wanted government to be small, because they didn't trust human nature. That's why they wanted government as strong as possible on the local level. Then they wanted government and then as it went up to the federal government, it just got it was watered down to the point where the federal government only had specific powers that was delegated to it via the Constitution, and so did states. And states had a lot more power, and supposed to have a lot more power than the federal government. But still, the power is supposed to be as close to the people as possible. So they can obviously dictate their lives the way they want to dictate their lives. So from the Federalist Papers 51, just to disprove the stance that somehow, since the founding fathers were against factions, which they wanted a bigger federal government to be able to control people. That just doesn't make any sense. Why would you now have imperfect people and imperfect beings and people that you don't trust to run the government? Why would you want beings like that to now just run a more totalitarian government, in a sense? So it says, quote, Federalist Papers 51, "The interest of the man must be connected with the constitutional rights of the place. It may be a reflection on human nature that such devices should be necessary to control the abuses of government. But what is government itself but the greatest of all reflections on human nature?" See, they got that. It was the government itself, because men are ambitious. People are ambitious in general. Man, woman, doesn't matter. Man is ambitious. And there needs to be inhibitor to that ambition. Because even when people wanted to go to that ambition, as we've seen, some of the worst evils in the world have come out of people doing what they thought was good. And in America now, those on the left, they might think they're doing good by increasing the government, but it's becoming more tyrannical, and they're trying to say to you, we think we know what to do for your life to make it better than you know what to do for your life to make it better, whether that means you make mistakes or not. And everyone's going to make mistakes. So it continues, "If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external or internal controls on government would be necessary." So basically, if men were angels, of course, we wouldn't need to have the man-made institution of government in the first place. But if angels governed men, then there wouldn't need to be the separation of powers, because they wouldn't take advantage of it. They wouldn't take advantage of men. Therefore, degrading the human institution of government once again. The founding fathers feared factions, which is why they wanted the people to have the power the most, and they wanted the separation of powers. Because whereas if a faction would rise up in Florida, well, Florida and California are so different in the sense of that doesn't mean California is going to follow them, and then this faction in Florida can only go so far, of course. But no, once you have the government bigger, and you have people like Obama who now just put the finger at the cops, for example, when a black male is shot and the facts are against him. And you have the media on the side as well. Well, that's when you really start to fool people, and that's what the founding fathers were afraid of. And unfortunately, many people followed the way of my teacher by expanding the government, because apparently the individuals couldn't be trusted. But apparently you can trust individuals in the strongest government in the nation instead of letting them run their own lives, which makes absolutely no sense at all, and was absolutely not what the founding fathers wanted. So, folks, I hope you found this video interesting. Like I said, I'll try to make 2 videos a week, and school's on, so it's going to be a really fun year. And this is already what's going on within the first week of American revisionist history, and basically just being dishonest about our history, or just not even knowing our history, as my professors don't seem to know correctly. Then I'm going to have a lot of good material. Anyways, folks, I'll see you folks soon, and hope you have a good rest of your day. My name is Wyatt, I'm the College Conservative.